Hey friend, this is Future Marcus here. Before we get into today's episode, there's some unfortunate noises that were happening either because of my mic or the switcher that it's connected to. And I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. I might need a new mic. I might need to set up a different routine to make sure that everything's all set. But I just want to come on here and apologize and say it's not going to hurt my feelings if you decide to skip on this podcast or any that do have these weird noises in them, because let's face it, in an audio medium, when you have bad audio, I get that. It's not a great thing to listen to. So I apologize, and I'm going to do what I can to try and keep this from happening again. And I greatly appreciate any grace and forgiveness for this kind of audio snafu. Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar. A quick reminder before we get into today's topic: if you are enjoying this podcast, then I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed, liked this video, and left a comment on anything that was impactful to you. Today, let's talk about insecurity. This is something that I have been having several conversations with clients about lately, and it's actually something that I find quite intriguing, how there seems to be these common threads that come up in conversations that I have throughout the course of a week, that I have multiple clients who are struggling with something very similar. This week, it has been insecurities and how to handle them. When we are talking about insecurities, we should probably define what an insecurity is. An insecurity is literally something that makes you not feel secure. A lot of times this can be something that is physical in your security. You don't feel safe in your environment. But more often than not, it seems to be centered around something that is mental or emotional, that you have something that is making you feel unsafe or even doubting yourself because of some kind of situation around you. Though you're not in any kind of physical danger per se, you still have the sense that something is making you unsafe. What do we do with these feelings of insecurity? What do we do when we feel unsafe? The main thing is, first and foremost, if you are feeling insecure, if you are feeling unsafe, it is important to move away from whatever is causing the insecurity, especially if you are in any kind of physical danger, if you do not feel safe, if you feel insecure in your physical setting. This is one of those situations where you just want to trust your body. And once you have done that, then it is important for us to become curious. This is usually my go-to response when I am working with a client and they're bringing something about their insecurities, is I just start asking a lot of questions. In fact, one of the conversations I had this week, I voiced a couple of times how likely my client was thinking, okay, Marcus, can you just give me the answer and stop asking all of these questions? And yet, it's important for us to figure out what is causing the insecurity. If you are physically feeling unsafe, then what is causing that? Is it something environmental? Is it something that is coming from hostility from another individual? If you are feeling emotionally insecure or mentally insecure, then this is where a lot of work is going to come from. What we want to do is figure out what is driving this. Now, if we talk about scientifically what is going on here, when we are feeling insecure, when we feel unsafe, our fear response is kicked in. And with this, that means you're not thinking with your higher order parts of your brain, your prefrontal cortex. We're thinking with the amygdala. This is the survival part of our brains. There is something that your brain has interpreted that says, this is a threat, this is a danger, we need to prepare to fight or run or freeze until something else distracts what the threat is. We need to fawn, or we just need to completely shut down. The 5 different the 5 different fear responses are what kicks in when this happens. A lot of this can happen because of doubts. Something happens, someone says something, and it makes us feel like we're not qualified. It makes us feel like we're in the wrong place, that there are other people who are better qualified, better prepared, or better suited for whatever task is at hand. And while that doesn't necessarily equate to, oh my gosh, I have this fear response that's kicking in, emotionally that same response can happen. We need to run away. I'm not good enough, I need to run away. Or I'm not good enough, I need to power up in order to be seen as competent. I need to appease these people so that they will take me seriously. Or I just need to put on a mask and pretend like I know what I'm doing, pretend like I have everything under control, even though I'm sweating buckets behind this mask. I am so afraid of being found out that I'm not doing good enough, that I'm going to get kicked out, that I'm going to be ostracized, that I'm going to be punished, I'm going to be disciplined, whatever the reasoning is. We want to figure out what exactly is driving this behavior. A conversation that I had earlier this week is we are not pushed or taken out of our mother's wombs feeling like we're not good enough, like we're not qualified. That's something that we learn. That's something that is instilled within us. So we need to figure out where this is coming from. A big part of working with insecurities, coming from someone who has done quite a bit of work and still has a lot of work ahead of him in dealing with his own insecurities, is a discerning, where is this coming from? We take a look at the messaging of what is specifically being said and brought to your awareness. I will use my gaming group as an example. I was having this conversation with my friend Brandon over our bi-weekly brunch, where we were talking about running these tabletop role-playing games. And in our group, one of the things that's very common that happens is a lot of groups have the forever game master, the forever GM. This is the person who is constantly the one running the campaigns while everyone else is a player. In our group, though, there's more of a push to have everyone be the game master. So we can constantly rotate. Some people can have a season where they're the ones running a campaign and everyone else is players. It gives people the opportunity to be in both seats and to facilitate these incredible adventures and stories instead of it just falling in the hands of one person to facilitate. Which means, with the Tyranny of Dragons campaign that we are currently running, that I'm currently running, one of the things that happens is there are 3 other people in this group of 7 that I often look at having a better understanding of the rules than I do. I want things to be fun and enjoyable for everyone at the table, and I have been told a couple of times now that at moments my interpretation of the rules can kind of cause hackles to come up with some of the others. This is something that triggers some of my own insecurities. I will feel, and notice I'm saying feel, because a lot of times I notice the feelings before I notice the thoughts, that I am not good enough, that there are these others who are better qualified to run these games than me. I'm still learning a lot about this system, and I'm learning a new system. I'm learning multiple systems, actually, depending on what games we're running. And so I can make some incorrect judgments. And sometimes I'm corrected. Sometimes they just let it go. Yet, when I have these thoughts, well, not the thoughts again, I notice the feelings first. I feel that I'm not doing good enough. Well, it's important for me to take a look at what am I saying to myself. In fact, I've actually done this exercise with some of my clients in the past where I have them tell me specifically what are the thoughts that you are telling yourself. And it's always fascinated me. The vast majority, I would say roughly 80 to 90% of the conversations that I have where we're looking into these thoughts, the messages, they're coming in these second person pronouns. It's not like I'm sitting there and saying, man, I'm just really not good at this. These other people are so much better qualified than I am. No, I'm saying you aren't doing well, and there are these other people who are more qualified than you. When that happens, it's always interesting for me to observe that and say, who's telling me that? I'm not telling myself that. If I were, I'd be using first person pronouns, but I'm not. And so we look back and we begin to unravel essentially a mystery. Where did these thoughts come from? This is one of those things, it's tricky. It's a tricky dynamic when we are working with these kind of feelings and these kinds of thoughts, because a lot of people don't trust their feelings. They believe that their feelings are lying to them. And don't get me wrong, your feelings can. Yet, there is a reason why we're having those feelings. The feelings are valid. And I have to reiterate that to anyone I have this conversation with. Your feelings, when you feel them, are valid. There is a very specific reason why you feel the feelings and the emotions that you do. However, if we go back to the thoughts that bring about the feelings, those thoughts might not be true. In fact, in a lot of cases, they're not true. Which brings up this interesting interplay between our thoughts and our feelings. Because we don't feel feelings typically just by themselves. They're usually started with thoughts. When you feel insecure, what's the thought that's driving it? Because our thoughts lead to our feelings, and our feelings lead to our behaviors. So when I am feeling insecure as a game master for these tabletop role-playing games that I play, I feel that, and I notice the language that I'm using. I'm saying, you're not good enough. Well, I'm not telling that to myself. That sounds like someone else is telling me that I'm not good enough. So where is that coming from? I have shared about some memories from my childhood where I didn't feel like I was good enough. I was told that I wasn't good enough. My dad told me at one point when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old that I was as worthless as tits on a board. I have struggled with this belief that I'm not good enough for years, for decades even. And this is something that still comes up. So what do I do? First, I have to identify the thoughts and say, oh, this is a very familiar place that I've been. I am believing that I'm not good enough. And then I take a look at, is that true? Is it true that I'm not good enough? While I was talking with Brandon, one of the things that he shared with me is if it has a good story, he is engaged. He was even sharing with me that there were some aspects of this campaign that he wasn't enjoying, and he expressed what those were, and none of them had anything to do with my running of the game. I thought maybe it was the antagonist that I had created, and he's like, no, he is a compelling antagonist. I want to see him fall for what he has done. And when we typically get done with a session, we go around and we share what was some of our favorite moments from that session. A lot of the times, those moments came about, I shouldn't say a lot of the times, all of the times, these moments come about through this collaboration in our storytelling. So I am helping to create a space where these people can interact with each other's characters, and their characters can grow, they can mature, they can have conflict. It's a good time. Yet when I feel insecure, that's not the evidence that I look at. The evidence that I look at is everything that is affirming this bad view and this bad belief that I have about myself. As I like to say, and I heard this years ago and I just absolutely love it, it comes down to changing that stinking thinking. The stinking thinking creates these emotions that make me want to belittle myself, that make me want to become smaller, not be as visible, want to sit on the sideline while others are doing what they're good at because I'm not believing that I'm good enough. It doesn't have to be that way. Again, the reason why you're feeling insecure is valid. The thoughts that are leading to it, they might not be as accurate because we bring our past into our present and project it onto our future. This is one of the things when we're talking about working with a therapist or a coach that comes up quite often, where it's like, can I just forget about the past? Why do I need to dig up all this stuff from my past? Because it's at play right now. It always is. And if we don't know what's going on, we're just going to continue these same cycles over and over and over again. When you feel insecure, know that it's okay to feel that way. And yet, that doesn't mean that what is driving this insecurity is true. Usually it's not. Let's make this practical. What is it that often brings out insecurities in you? Is it something about your work? About your school? Is it about family? Is it about a relationship? A friendship? A romantic relationship? Is it about your abilities? About your skills? Your talents? Is it about your sexuality? Is it about your body? What brings up insecurity in you? And when you feel this insecurity, what I challenge you to do is really notice how that shows up in your body. What is the response physically in your body that lets you know that this insecurity is coming up? For me, it is my nature to get small. It is my nature to get quiet. It's my nature to not talk and let others have control over the conversation. That's what often happens to me. It's me withdrawing. Great. Now that's how it shows up in me. If you know how it shows up in you, what your body physically does, then when you recognize that, and this is the important part, when you recognize that insecurity response in your body, then become curious. I guess we've already become curious because we're being curious about how our bodies respond. So become even more curious. What thoughts are you telling yourself? And once you know what those thoughts are, here are some good questions you can ask yourself. Where have I heard that before? And who does that sound like? One of the things that is very common are the messages that we are telling ourselves, especially if you notice that they're coming in the second person pronouns. They're usually messages that we heard from someone else, and we have internalized them. In fact, I often tell my clients that if they are telling themselves something and it's in first person, that's more problematic because now that means it is a belief. You have made it a part of your identity. I could be totally wrong on that. Again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. This is something that I've observed though. When I talk with people and we are getting into what their thoughts are and they're telling themselves these things in I'm not good enough, I'm failing, I'm worthless, whatever it is, that's usually a lot harder to get rid of. And I think the reason why is because it has become much more internal within your very being instead of it being something external that someone else has said. Regardless, you can overcome these thoughts and these feelings. For a lot of us, it's going to be some work. It's going to be work first to be able to identify these thoughts and these feelings. In many cases, it seems when the feelings come up, they can be very overwhelming and we immediately try and run away from them. We turn to a coping mechanism. That might be the first place to start. Maybe it's not even recognizing the feelings, it's recognizing when you're running away from something and you don't know what that is. But you don't need to be stuck in these loops, in these patterns of behavior. You can break free from them. It's possible. It'll take a lot of work, and it'll take a lot of conscious effort and intentionality. It will take a lot of curiosity. But you can process through and break these patterns in your life. Identify the feelings and then become curious. How does that feel in my body? When was the last time I felt that? Or, oh, I'm feeling that right now in this conversation. What am I hearing? What am I telling myself? And then I would say most importantly, and this may even be something that you need to get some help with, is ask, is that true? Especially if we've heard these messages as young children, it can be so easy for us to just be stuck in, well, this is the truth. When if we actually think about it, is it? Is that really the truth? Maybe you need to hear from someone else, someone that you trust, And I highly suggest you don't ask the person who told you the messages that are causing these thoughts and emotions when you were growing up, unless there's been a change in that relationship. I hope that you found this encouraging. You're not alone in having these so unhelpful patterns of behavior that kind of get you stuck in these old ways of thinking and these old ways of believing. There is hope. There are ways to break free from it. We might need some help from other people, though. Oftentimes when we are feeling these feelings and we're thinking these thoughts, in those moments, it's really hard to get out of it. And that's why having someone who can speak to you, who can speak the truth about you in a loving and compassionate way, can really help us get free from this cycle. And that's what I encourage you to do. Best of luck on this journey of breaking free from your own insecurities. I'm definitely here with you. I'm still working on them myself. And it's okay. It's okay to be where I'm at. It's okay to be where you're at right now. But I don't want you to stay there. I really don't. I want you to be able to start living the best life that you possibly can, however that looks for you. I want you to live a life where you are walking in strength and security, where you are walking in love and compassion and empathy. And I want you to live a life where you're doing your best and you're having as much fun as you can along the way. And until next time, live strong for today.